Hello and welcome to Direct Approach with Wayne Moorehead, an exclusive podcast by Direct Selling News, where host Wayne interviews the channel's leading corporate executives to provide timely insights and relevant takeaways to help you grow and evolve your business. So we are shaking things up a little bit today. Wayne is going to visit with an industry field leader that has built an online presence that currently reaches more than 2 million people a month and have what appears to be an infinite funnel for their business. He's an Independent Prüvit Distributor known as the Keto Dad, Nick Martinez. Fair warning, this episode is packed with actionable takeaways and ideas, so be prepared to take lots of notes. Nick and Wayne dive into his strategy for growing social capital and explains why mastering one social media platform may be more effective than trying to reach followers on every available platform. They also get into organic versus paid, and Nick also shares how he teaches new distributors to build their personal brands and what corporate can do to empower the field to be authentically themselves on social media to build genuine engagement and connections. A little bit more about Nick. He discovered direct selling in 2009 and truly found his footing when he joined Prüvit in 2015. Looking for a way to boost sales in his side gig, he created the Keto Dad Facebook page and built it from 0 followers to 6,000 followers in just 18 months. Then, over the next 12 months, he grew that number to more than 100,000 followers. He quit his job as a pilot, and Nick and his wife Christina, who manages their social media full-time, worked together building his online presence as the Keto Dad. Nick also shares how one moment at a corporate event and exposure to personal development was the pivotal moment in his business that changed his mindset and belief in himself. And he talks about what corporate can do to support the field in this area. We're excited to share that Nick will be a speaker at the upcoming fall DSU event October 6th and 7th in Irving, Texas. Nick is one of 20 speakers that are brand new to the DSU stage. At DSU, Nick will share how executives can embrace and assist your field in recruiting and creating influencers. He will speak on the strategy behind a long-term approach to increasing retention, stability, and managing rapid growth. Across the channel, executives are constantly looking to hear from fresh voices like Nick, and DSU events are where direct selling executives gain the insights, access, and ideas about what's working, what's not, and what's next for the channel. We invite you to join your executive peers October 6th and 7th in Irving, Texas for the fall DSU event to learn about these hottest topics and opportunities in the channel right now. One of the trending conversations is Amazon. If you're interested in learning how companies have turned Amazon from a pain point to profitable while protecting the brand and relationship with the field, register to attend DSU in person and then add our new Amazon and e-commerce strategies workshop to your registration plans. The workshop is from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time on Friday, October 7th, after the DSU general session ends. DSU and the workshop is free to all active corporate direct selling executives. The workshop is available to in-person attendees only. Register for both DSU and the workshop today at dsu2022.com. Before we begin, DSN is honored to be supported by industry suppliers that partner with companies across the channel to help it enhance, streamline, and grow their businesses. This episode sponsors are Nexio and InfoTrax. Nexio was purpose-built for direct and social selling companies. The robust software platform allows businesses with complex risk profiles to navigate the intricacies of payments and turn them into a strategic asset. From payouts to fraud protection to multi-currency to global expansion and more, Nexio has the tools you need to succeed. Learn more at nex.io. That's NEX.io. And commissions payments and earnings go to real people with real needs, goals, struggles, and dreams. InfoTrax Systems believes that honest direct selling companies have a responsibility to be successful and efficient so that they can continue to provide those valuable dollars and cents to the people who need them in their lives. Instead of seeing commissions management as a necessary evil when running a business, InfoTrax invites all direct sales companies to take a step back and really consider why they are paying commissions. InfoTrax helps direct sales companies optimize, gain insight, and help change people's lives. That's why good direct sales companies pay commissions. That's why InfoTrax helps them do it right. Learn more at infotraxsys.com. And now, please help me welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's guest, Nick Martinez, the Keto Dad and Independent Prüvit Distributor.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's going to be kind of a special episode where we shift the spotlight in the conversation from the corporate leader to the field leader. And I feel very lucky today to be joined by a field leader that has been and continues to be incredibly successful and building one of the biggest businesses in the industry. The content that he and his wife develop reach more than 2 million people each month. And I'm talking about Prüvit brand partner, none other than the Keto Dad, Nick Martinez. Nick, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, Wayne. Pleasure to be on. I'm really excited to just have a conversation with you today.
Yeah, me as well. As I mentioned right before we started recording, this is a really important episode. You're bringing a really important perspective, the field leader perspective, during a time where there's a lot of change. Everything's very fluid. Everything's very dynamic. We're just coming out of an interesting couple years and shifting into a really exciting other time. Also, we all know about, some of the potential economic issues that are going on right now. And so I can't think of anyone better than you to give us perspective and to drop some knowledge on us about how the field is thinking about things and how we can better support the field as corporate.
It definitely is a crazy time in the world. And personally, I think there's no better time to be involved in direct sales, network marketing than now. We say that a lot, but it really, the confusion over the last 2 years has created a great opportunity, I believe, if we take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Much greater demand, coming out of COVID, but also into this new economic period. We all know that there's historically been an inverse relationship with kind of how the economy is going and demand for additional streams of income. So it is really a perfect time. You discovered entrepreneurship and also direct selling in a really early part of your life. Can you tell us a little bit about the path that led you to starting the Keto Dad and to joining Prüvit?
Absolutely. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, but when I was a child, I was mowing lawns and I was creating little businesses at home. But I always had a passion for traveling and going places and flying. So at an early age, I became a pilot. I went to college for it. I grew up in Colorado. Flight school took me to Grand Forks, North Dakota. I was there for 4.5 years, learning how to fly airplanes. Got hired by Northwest Airlink, which became Delta Connection back in 2006. And shortly thereafter, I was actually introduced to my first network marketing company by a fellow pilot. We were at 30,000 feet having a conversation. And the next thing I knew, I was involved in network marketing. I went to my first event and kind of fell in love with it. What's interesting though, is people hear my story and they're like, oh, you're very successful. You have this page, you've recruited all these people. But if you actually hear the path and the journey, I'm really a 10-year overnight success. So my first 30 days in business, I got one sale. One, I guess, customer promoter, and it was April 30th of 2009. I remember clearly because I got a call from my friend, the pilot, who was celebrating, and he's like, oh my gosh, you got your first sale. And I remember saying to him, actually, it was my dad, and it was a pity sign up. So it's funny. I did not have a fast start. I had a fast love for the industry, love for entrepreneurship, love for the style of business that I could do alongside flying airplanes and build up in the nooks and crannies of my day. And I just learned, I had to learn over the last 10 years of how am I going to do this? Because I went from being a pilot, which is a very structured, they tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And there's no creativity involved. You don't want a creative pilot, to all of a sudden being told, you've got to go create the attraction. You've got to go create the marketing. You got to go be interesting, like talk to people. And I was really good at closing the cockpit door so I didn't have to do so. So literally for 7-8 years, I just spent my time learning. I had a lot of mentors along the way. And through that was able to do enough to keep me involved, but not enough to walk away from flying airplanes. Right. And it really wasn't until the last 7 years or so now that I was able to just kind of step into something even better. And I spent about 4 or 5 years learning how to create influence via face-to-face, meaning learning how to go to a BNI meeting, a Chamber of Commerce meeting, any sort of networking event, in order to develop a relationship with people, in order to, have them know, like, and trust me, to the point where they're like interested in what I was doing, interested in the products and the business that we had to offer. And I spent lots of time doing that. In fact, so much so that we went from having no kids to having a baby. Callie became my networking partner. And she would come to all of the networking meetings with me. And it was easy to talk to people when you had a baby in your arm because they wanted to hold your baby. But there became a time when she was too old to bring to those meetings. She became 2 and she became annoying instead of cute. And that was kind of the point where I'm like, crap, I have to watch her, because I was flying nights in order to work my business during the day. My wife worked full time for a web development company. And so I became daddy daycare. It's not really daycare when it's your own kid, but I had to watch her. And I couldn't just take her to all of my meetings. So at that point, I realized, this was back in 2015, I realized, like, okay, there's social media. I don't use it, but I need to learn. And I asked a bunch of people, what do I do? How do I do this stuff? At the time, I had 200 regular friends on Facebook. I posted once a month, only because my mom would call me and say, you need to post pictures of your daughter so that I could see her grow up. And I would, but I had to develop something to create a new level of attraction. So fast forward, when I started the Keto Dad page, we had 0 followers. It took us 18 months to go from 0 to 6,000. Which sounds like a lot, but in those 18 months, I literally got no customers out of it. It wasn't anything special. But over the next 12 months, I went from 6,000 to over 100,000 followers, and started to enroll handfuls of customers, to the point now where over the last 5.5 years, we've put in about 11,000 personal customers. And created tremendous influence and value in the marketplace, and really have helped create an amazing team. And what's fun is it's not just me now, I'm watching people that started with no influence become influencers. And when done so in the realm of, hey, I want to create this influence so that I can help people with our products, next thing you know, like they're really growing a big business. So that's a I guess 2-minute view of my history there, and kind of where we started and where we're at now.
That's a really inspiring kind of origin story. And I think there's a lot of great lessons in there as well. I think many of us expect to flip the switch and the customers or distributors and prospects kind of come rolling in. But just like any business, it really is a process, and it takes study and work and sacrifice. And then once you kind of find something that's working, there's even more work. It's refining, it's optimizing, it's continuing to improve from there. And I think that is a really important and inspirational story, to see someone who is so successful in the industry saying that it was a years-long process, not a months-long. So taking a step back a little bit, can you give us a little bit of your perspective of where direct selling is today? What is going on in the field, how you see it in today's direct selling versus even just a few years ago?
I mean, that's a big question.
Yeah.
From my perspective, we're just in a time where people are trying to figure it out. I was just having a conversation with my wife, who's heavily involved in our business with us, and we're just talking about people's buying patterns, their desire for an opportunity. When COVID hit, like, we had a captive audience of people that were literally doing nothing, scrolling social media to pass time. And, 20-30% of the population was really impacted financially by COVID. The other 70-80% actually had a lot more money in their hands because they weren't spending it. They weren't doing stuff. So we had 2 years where those people were like, all right, I'll try that. Hey, I'll join this business. It sounds like something fun to do. And then over the last 6 months, we've gotten through this phase of, is COVID over? Is it not over? I'm not sure. Everybody's doing stuff. Masks are gone, like just this change. And now we're in the state right now where people are just like, they're almost paralyzed, because now they can get out in public, but they don't know if they should. Now their kids are back involved in all the sports. Now they're psychologically like, oh, maybe I won't have a lot of money here in the future, so I'm a little bit tighter. So people aren't just ready to throw money. They're not just ready to jump in. They're in this kind of state. So the big question is, how do you just continue creating that level of attraction and have an offer for them that they're like, all right, I've got to at least be part of that, or I've got to try that product. So in that space, I think there's opportunity, but it definitely, it's thrown people for a loop. It's definitely, I think, industry-wide, there's just this little like, okay, what's going on and what's happening? I believe that probably in the next 3 to 4 months, we're just going to see a massive shift. I know there's doom and gloom, there's all this stuff, but I believe that once the psychological impact starts to just become familiar, meaning it's not the top of the news every day. It's not like you got Russia and Ukraine, then you got the recession, then you got the economy, and then you got gas. Like all of those things are noise, which slow people down, but pretty soon that's just going to become familiar. And when that becomes familiar, now people go back to their old habits. They realize, okay, the sky didn't fall. Okay, I still have money in my bank account. Okay, I'm ready. So my personal belief and what we're really doing is creating as much new conversation, new attraction, just continuing to charge forward and doubling our efforts so that when that kind of junction point hits here in the next 3 to 4 months, we're ready to absolutely help a lot of people and capitalize on it.
So that group of distributors that's coming in now, and maybe even that came in over 2020 and 2021, how do you see them being different from maybe in the years past? Do they have different drivers and motivators, or still kind of that same desire, that same promise that direct selling brings? Is that really what's attracting them today?
I think it's shifted. In the past, I found people were a lot more financially driven, financially motivated, and I think priorities are a little bit different. So there's still that aspect, and people still want that. However, I think from a larger standpoint, people want to be part of something. They want a community. I think a lot of that was lost in the 2 years when everybody stayed home. While they were still connected via social media, they didn't have that true people-to-people connection, that interaction. So I think there's a desire consciously and subconsciously to get back into groups of people, to true like community-based marketing, to being in somebody's living room, to being at an actual live event, not just a virtual event. So the interesting transition is people that joined during the pandemic are of the Zoom world, right? They just did everything from their computer. They didn't have to leave their house. So now they have to go on this little bit of a transition to, all right, I've got to start doing things differently. I need to shift. And then people who are coming in right now are being led by people that maybe have not done any of that. So those that have been around since pre-COVID, like, oh yeah, I guess we do things in the living room. I was in Spokane, Washington 3 days ago doing a party at a promoter's house. We had a couple of promoters out there, got them together. They invited some friends. Like you call it old school, network marketing, but it's people sharing something that they like and getting together with others, and it's community. So I believe that aspect is a piece that is going to keep this long term rather than just transactional. It'll bring people in to realize they're part of something greater than themselves. And truly, I think people are looking for that specifically.
That's really insightful. I do think that community is one of the main value propositions that we have to offer to people that join our companies. I'm curious, with those that came in during that time period that are having to shift, are you spending more of your time helping that group to shift, to kind of do business a little bit differently? Have you had to kind of shift from maybe more prospecting to more training and advancement within your own organization, or are you still able to pretty much kind of follow the same strategy or playbook that you have been?
I think we're just adding a component, because social media and social selling will never, it's only going to grow. It's only going to get bigger. And it's truly the most amazing thing to be able to connect with that many people. I believe the magic happens when you combine that aspect with the ability then to bring them together. I mentioned this meeting in Spokane. There was a guest there. One of the ladies, her name's Jennifer, was a promoter of ours, and she had met this lady via social media, and they'd never met in person. The lady had tried some of our product and then come to her house, and they met for the first time. And now she's local, she's excited, she just became a customer, possibly becoming a promoter, and they want to do other things together. So that was able to happen because they met on social media. However, the true, like, the energy was transferred because they were in person. So there's definitely an element now of training people to, how do you get in front of somebody? How do you meet somebody for coffee? How do you have them over to your house? What do you do in that aspect? Which is all stuff that is pretty basic. It's pretty simple. In fact, a lot of it's the same as doing a Zoom meeting or something via social media. But now, as we just got to help them understand that it's okay and it's possible.
Absolutely. Do you look at each of those as kind of a different tool in the toolbox that can have a different effect that's for a different purpose, or it just depends on whoever the prospect is? Meaning, do you feel like social is going to be more effective for prospecting, and then once you know that they're really interested or more dedicated, then you bring them in for more of the in-person, or it just depends on whichever the individual prefers today? How do you use, and when do you use each of those?
The cool thing is, I don't think it's one or the other, or which one do you focus on. I think it's both and, meaning social media gives me the ability to ride in an Uber to the airport, like I did last week, talk to the Uber driver. And instead of feeling like I have to show him what I've got because he asked and try to get him in that moment, we just follow each other on social media. Here, follow me. I'm the Keto Dad on Facebook. Let me send you a friend request. What's your name? Now we're connected, and I met him in person, but now because of social media, I am developing a relationship with him over time that eventually he's reaching out to me again saying, all right, how do I get what you have? Or how do I join your team? So the opposite is true, because there's plenty that come straight from social media who then, if I happen to be in a certain area or a certain town, I can go on Facebook and say, who do I know? Who of my friends or who of my followers live in Spokane, Washington? And I can personally invite them to whatever I'm doing. So it's like, it's this web where I believe to be successful in today's industry or in today's world, you have to marry both together. And the better you are at combining the two, there's just, they're not one or the other. They're basically both and.
I think that's really interesting that you're able to bring both so quickly and then don't have this hard line between the rules and guardrails for each of those, that you just pull them together almost till they blend, till there is no difference between them.
Our philosophy in building the Keto Dad page and brand was always just to create value and build a group of people that knew who we were, liked us, and trusted us enough that if we were to recommend something, they'd say, hey, like, he must be real. He's legit. I know him. And that concept wasn't like, I remember in BNI learning from, I think it was Ivan Meisner, the concept of know, like, and trust. And that aspect it's not just belly to belly. It's not just at a networking meeting. It's also on social media. So the more that the people that are following you or friends with you know you, get to know you, feel like they know you, like you, you're likable. They have fun watching you. They trust you. Now, all of a sudden, whether you're in person or not, as long as you're authentic in yourself on social media and authentic to yourself in person, then guess what? Like, they decide to be part of what you're doing. And then eventually that can be taught. Like, it's a very teachable skill that doesn't require a social media skill set. It just requires them to be willing to share with the world who they are.
I want to circle back on a couple of topics. You touched on kind of providing value and utility. And then I'd love to shift into talking a little bit about authenticity and the best way to kind of bring that to life. I do think that is one of the really interesting aspects of your business, is that first and foremost, your content is there providing value in the form of suggestions, hacks, advice, recipes, thought leadership. There's reasons to keep coming back above and beyond, really any product that you're promoting. But you do such an amazing job of seamlessly weaving the product into the value, into the content that you create, that, again, to your point, it makes it feel very authentic. What do you feel is the right approach as a field leader when you look at the content as a ratio between, let's say, value and utility versus something a little bit more promotional? You have to make certain deposits, in your authenticity bank account to be able to make withdrawals when you want to sell something. How do you look at that balance or that ratio? Is it something that you are really intentional about, or did it just kind of happen organically?
I developed an analogy because I heard you have to create more value than you ask for in return. Somebody early on that I was picking their brain, like, hey, how do I grow this? He says, value, value, value. And I came up with this analogy years ago, and I think it really makes sense. It's a piggy bank. You just said the money that you're putting in your bank account. So we teach, picture a piggy bank, whatever piggy bank looks like to you. And every time you create value and you post something that people want to see and they're getting something for free from, whether it be a recipe that we post or something that we're teaching or inspiration, that is me putting a quarter into my piggy bank. And then some of us start and we have a piggy bank that's just full of quarters, right? We've been posting and creating value without asking for anything for years. Other people have never posted, so there's no money in their piggy bank, which is okay. Then when I post something about a product and I'm quote unquote selling or sharing information, I am taking a silver dollar out of the piggy bank. And I always say, how many quarters are in a silver dollar? Well, there's 4 quarters in a silver dollar. So if I'm posting 4 times and I'm posting 1 time, my net balance in that piggy bank has not changed. So if I started with a lot of money, then I'm just kind of keeping that amount, but it's not necessarily growing my social capital. If I started with nothing, I'm not really adding anything either. So it's not growing. So I like to look at it in realms of kind of what's going on in our business. Every business and company has some sort of rhythm where there might be a sale or there might be a promotion. During that time, your balance in that piggy bank might start to shrink, right? But then I know that I'm aware, hey, I did 3 or 4 lives this week about our product and I didn't do as many about value. So next week, I better do a lot of value in order to fill that bank account up so that I have some capital that I can extract next time I need it. So the ratio I look at is 4-to-1, but that's just to remain neutral. So there are some weeks I might be like 6 or 7 or 8-to-1 trying to grow that social capital. And then there's other weeks where it's time to take some money out of the bank. And those, it might be 2 or 3-to-1.
I think that is a really effective analogy to use there. And I think below that is you really have to earn the right to get people's attention and to be able to promote or to sell to them. I think far too often, even we as companies just kind of get out there and start talking about the product. And it's something that really has to be earned, that it can't just be assumed. I'm curious, what lessons do you feel can be applied to corporate from what you've learned there about that content ratio? Do you feel that the corporations should be doing something very similar as well to, maybe that 4-to-1, but to really focus on providing value and utility above and beyond the products?
Yeah. I mean, from the corporate standpoint, you can look at it as, what are we pouring into our field? We always say we're about the people. We're in a personal development business. We're growing individuals. So if we're just saying, hey, this is the new product that just came out, this is the next launch that's going on, this is the next XYZ, this is the promotion that's happening, hey, if you go get this many new distributors, you get XYZ. Those are all like just trying to push and trying to get more growth and more revenue out of the field. Now, what if the combination was, all right, we just did that, so how can we add value to this person? Whether maybe it's just a message from the CEO or a message from one of the field leaders, and we have trainings, we have different things. But if you start to look at it about like, what's the rhythm from the company? What's the communication like? And then in that communication, is it just promotion, or is there some value that we're truly bringing? I mean, everybody out there, all the companies that I've ever been part of have amazing personal development programs, have amazing people that they've partnered with. But a lot of times it just starts to feel like it's noise. It's over here and it comes in when we have an event and then it goes away. But how can you layer that in consistently so that you are creating conscious leaders rather than just sales reps?
So how do you differentiate content and utilize the different platforms? So you started with the Facebook page, the Keto Dad on Facebook. As more of or different platforms have started to show promise, how have you started to utilize them? And has your content strategy shifted? Do you look at each as a very different content strategy, or do you try to develop a piece of content and then be able to kind of utilize it across as many platforms as your customers are?
Yes, cross-platform posting is 100% the name of the game. Otherwise, you're chasing your tail. So this day and age, there's TikTok, there's IG, there's Facebook. There's some people on Snapchat. I'm not quite there. There's YouTube. And the question is, like, if I'm creating something, how can I essentially use it for all different platforms? I have a personal opinion that you can't be all things to all people. It's an old saying, and I believe it applies to social media. You can't be all things to all platforms. And I've seen too many of our promoters get spread so thin and then end up burning out because they're trying to do TikTok. They're trying to do Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. They're trying to post on Facebook and Instagram, and they're trying to do their stories. And next thing you know, they're like, well, maybe I should post on YouTube too. I saw somebody doing that. And now they're not good at anything. So my personal preference is to really dive in and focus on one that you can own, that you can become a master at. And that's really like our bread and butter is Facebook, right? We have hundreds of thousands of followers on other platforms. However, 90% of our effort goes into Facebook, and then the other platforms, we just cross post, or we just take that same piece of content and put it up there. So watching trends and getting in front of that kind of stuff is great. I'm old school when it comes to, I don't use the word algorithm. I've taken that out of my language. I don't try to chase trends. Maybe I'm wrong in that. But what I truly believe in is if I focus on what I'm good at, focus on the thing that that's working right now and that will continue to work in the future, and then at the same time, just be truly authentic and real, then the algorithm catches up, right? Because the algorithm is designed to reward realness. The more that you try to game the system, or the more that you're trying to do all of these things, it takes away from you. So I would caution people from trying to be all things to all people, but at the same time, I would focus and double down on one thing, and then not be afraid to try new things, because you might find that something's a better fit. We had plenty of promoters that started on Facebook and it just wasn't the right platform for them. And now with TikTok, they're thriving, right? But they wouldn't have known that unless we pushed them out of their comfort zone and say, just try this and see what happens. So it's not a one size fits all by any means.
No, it's not. And I think that similarly applies to corporate as well. Oftentimes there's a tendency to go be on, every social platform, to have a presence and to make sure that you're on whatever the new upcoming social platform is, because you don't want to miss out on anybody. But really, if you focus on the few that your target audience is at, the lion's share, it's that 80-20 rule or 90-10, most of them are going to be there. And you can pick up kind of these secondary or tertiary audiences. But if you just focus on a few key platforms, you're really going to hit most of the people. And also, to the target audience point, you know it better than anybody else, the different demographics and how they use each of these platforms. You focused on Facebook, that's going to be a little bit older than Instagram or TikTok, but then bringing some of that content over. I'm curious, do you approach that intentionally as well? On Facebook, it's going to be slightly older. So I need to make sure that I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, and apply some of the content there to get younger prospects coming in and younger field leaders. How do you think about that from a demographic or target audience standpoint?
For sure, Facebook is an older demographic. It's very, very noticeable in our business. And yes, the nice thing with Instagram is you kind of hit those 25 to 40-year-olds that are prime. And I was 26 when I got started in this style business. I'm 39 now. So it really is a cool time for them. So kind of shifting a little bit, or just having a presence there and then continuing to be consistent, allows those elements to come. TikTok is like the wild, wild west. You just never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to be able to actually talk to the person that commented on your video. But the neat thing with TikTok is anything can happen, right? It's the person that's been doing this for 3 years and hasn't had a lot of success, but is consistent. Next thing you know, they enroll 300 customers because one post goes viral. So it's it's possible. And the neat thing with that is on TikTok, like, yes, it's younger, but I know 60, 70-year-olds that are scrolling TikTok all the time. So it's like, it's bringing everybody into one central app. So it's definitely interesting. One thing I'll say is right now in this moment, the opportunity in this, the fast growing thing in the social media world seems to be Reels on Facebook. And I've seen more just promoters of ours who like literally have zero following and go from 0 to 50,000 over the course of a couple months. More so than I'm seeing on TikTok or Instagram. It's just Facebook is trying to really push and garner that market share and bring eyeballs back to it. So it's a unique space and time right now. If somebody's already creating a TikTok or already creating an Instagram reel, why not just throw it up on Facebook too and see what happens?
That's really interesting. It does seem like engagement is really exploding on Facebook Reels. I think they're doing a great job of serving up really relevant content. I think that's one of the things that just keeps you hooked. It's not random, but over time, it is really figuring out your interests, your likes, and that gets to video as well. So has your content shifted much more just to video versus any static content?
Video was our bread and butter in the beginning, because back then, I guess in 2015, there was no Facebook Live. I don't know if you remember the app Periscope. I was talking about that the other day.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the first like live app, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, Periscope!" And then Facebook. I
watched Gary Vee. He used it all the time, and so I would watch Gary Vee on Periscope.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember the first time I ever used it. I was in Puerto Vallarta, and I had no idea what to do or how to even do it, but it was fun showing people the balcony view of the beach. And here we are 7 years later, and Facebook Live to me is still probably the top option to create a relationship and communicate, because they truly get to step into your life and talk to you. So just from what I've seen, Facebook does not prefer my videos. They prefer my lives. If I do a live, it has a longer shelf life than if I just put up a video. That's not to say I don't put up a video every single day, because the beauty of video is you can create it once and you can post it as much as you want. So we still use it as part of it, but I do not see the same level of love from Facebook that I would a live. I see much more, like, I call it the Instagram style post. If you were to post something on Instagram, that style of post on Facebook is alive and well. Like it's very, Facebook loves it. And in my brain, I'm thinking it's because people are scrolling quickly and they see that, they read it, and then they go to the next one. So from Facebook's real estate standpoint, videos you're going to watch for 2 or 3 minutes, a little bit of engagement. Live, you're super engaged. The Instagram style post, you're going to scroll faster, which means they get to go through more ads. So it's usually 4 posts from your feed, 1 ad for 1 ad, kind of like the piggy bank analogy. So Facebook will put your Instagram style post through a lot of people's feeds for free, just because it's a quick consumer content. And then they love the lives because they're generally longer and people will engage in it and stay on their platform longer, which just gives them more face time. So I don't think video is dead by any means, but it's just different than it used to be now that there's just other maybe priorities in Facebook's mind.
That's really interesting. You mentioned them promoting a piece of content for free. That raised the question in my mind. I know probably the lion's share of the traffic you get is organic. Is paid part of your strategy as well? Is that a tool in the toolbox, whether it's boosting a post or from prospecting, or do you really focus just on the organic to increase your reach and awareness?
That's a great question. 90%, I'd say 95, maybe even more than that. We don't drive any content. I found that me spending money on content is kind of a waste, because I can create the content and it'll drive for free. So we used to try boosting posts, but I never saw a good return on investment. Now I'm also, I still have opportunity there as far as, can you spend money on that and get a return? Yeah, you can. People do. Can the new person who's just getting started? Probably not. It's not going to be worth their return. They're going to be spending a lot of money for a very little return. So I personally don't teach it. I personally don't do a lot of it. The only thing that I have done in the past to just to get more eyeballs on our page is the only ads that we run are page like ads, where you pay $5 a day and then they'll put your page in front of people and then you'll have new people click the like button. That's a cool feature to be able to have and pay for. It only comes with a professional page. But it does work from a standpoint of now you have more people that are following you that are going to get to see your content, know, like, and trust you. And then it does create more authenticity when nothing's coming through as a sponsored post. They're just seeing it as me and as organic. So when I'm talking to somebody, or if I'm teaching somebody to build out their own kind of brand, their own page, I would say for the first like 2,000 or 3,000 followers, you have to be 100% organic and you have to grow on your own. Why? Because if you can't grow to there with people like you creating the attraction, that's you learning, that's you finding your voice, that's you stepping into who you are. And if you don't do that, if you just pay for it, sure, you can go buy 10,000 likes. But the question is there going to be engagement? Is there going to be a relationship? And if there's not, you just spent a lot of money to get some likes and feel good, not actually producing anything in your business.
Sure. The vanity metrics, it's super impressive. And I just want to say kudos to you for the expertise and the acumen that you've developed. It sounds like you have an incredible understanding of what's working, and then also staying ahead of the constant change that's always there, what's working, what's not, what type of messages, what type of content. Really, really impressive, and something for all of us to learn. I want to circle back to authenticity that you just mentioned again. We talk about it a lot. We hear about it. It tends to get overused, but it is one of the most important ingredients for success for a distributor on social, and even for a brand or for corporate on social. Can you talk a little bit about, beyond, just providing value, what are some other ways that you ensure that your content looks, feels, smells, and is really authentic?
I believe fully that authenticity is everything people can read and smell if you're trying to be something you're not. The biggest challenge is just helping people figure out who it is that they are, or who it is that they want to be. A lot of that's been lost just over the years because consuming of Netflix and news, and then going to and from work on a daily basis, no one's asking you like, hey, what do you love about life? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And that's obviously what we love about this industry, is we get to ask those questions, and we also get to think about them ourselves and then project them. So authenticity comes when we start dreaming and creating that vision, sharing it, because that is truly authentically us. You might have people that push back or challenge that. Well, you didn't have any goals before. Now you have goals. What's changed? Well, no, that was pushed down inside, and now you're allowed to let that out. Now you're allowed to share it.
So it's not just being yourself, but even potentially being kind of that aspirational version of yourself, but not taking it to the extent where it's fake. You've built a really incredible brand. We talked about the numbers, the reach that you get, even on a monthly basis across all of your platforms. So you've built a really successful brand that really exists independently of any of the products that you promote. And I think we're seeing more and more of that in direct selling. And I'm curious, from the independent distributor's perspective, how important is that for today's distributor? What advice do you give to those that you bring in and are starting to advance and rank? Do they focus on, being themselves? Is it kind of more of an umbrella brand? Is it attaching closer to the company or the products they're promoting? How do you approach and view that?
We are all our own brand walking around, right? I'm Nick Martinez. You're Wayne. And as we're talking to people, that's who we are. And the fact that we promote a certain product or share this does not define me. It is something that I offer and something that I'm able to contribute to people. And then we have an opportunity that they're able to join us and they get to know the company and our community. But first and foremost, people will see you as you. So being a brand on social media is no different than you in person. And somebody stops you at the gas station and asks about your wrap on your car, or the window sticker says, oh, what's that product? What's that business? And you talk to them, they're learning about that product and business, and also at the same time learning about you. So that's the difference, or that's the the thing is authenticity. It's back to what we were just talking about, because with this brand, as I become more authentic, people are drawn to me. And then the fact that I can offer them something gives them an ability to say, hey, I like this guy. I trust him. I'm going to share it. So specifically, I don't see it as complicated. The more that we start to just unlock our own potential and invest in ourselves and who we are, then we rise to the fact that we're a person. You could call the Keto Dad a brand, but it's Nick Martinez, it's Christina Martinez, and people like us, they trust us. And then as a result, when we have things to offer, they're purchasing it.
That's really interesting. It's a dynamic that I was really kind of excited to talk to you about. So that's kind of the advice that you give to the field. I'm also curious, what does corporate need to understand about that approach? Is there any nuance or insights that corporate needs to understand, or it's just this is how business is being done today in the most effective manner?
Yeah, I think there's a handful of things that corporate can do to empower people to go and just be more of them. And then there's also resources and tools like tactical things that they can provide. So one just simple thing is when corporate's producing graphics or flyers, think about it from a standpoint of if all of your promoters are posting this and people see it, is it just a corporate billboard, or does it kind of allow that person to put a spin on it? Does it allow those people's friends to say, wow, this is cool, I want to be part of that? Or is it just a standard issue ad? Because ads are everywhere. We see them all the time. And most companies could go create and run ads themselves, right? They have that ability and to target with social media platforms these days, even with streaming services these days. Now, the value that we bring as a field is the ability to add our own personal spin. So if we can have amazing resources that are essentially just like pictures of the product that aren't necessarily graphics, or unique settings that you can then use for your story tiles, or you can add your face to, or you can personalize so that it becomes you promoting this product, not just you saying, here's my company, here's this product, go and buy it. And the other piece is a true investment. We talked about earlier, investment in people. Allowing, like, my biggest transformation over the last number of years has just been stepping into a more authentic version of me. I believe that if we, as a industry, like, we always talk about personal development, but if you truly understand the value that if you empower people like myself, who started with one customer in the first 30 days, to believe in who I could be or who I truly believe I am, but I'm afraid to be, or I don't have the confidence to step into, the next thing you know, I'm sharing that socially. And now you as corporate are providing us with resources to just basically empower us to be more of who we are. Then next thing you know, you're creating true, authentic attraction, which leads to much longer term retention of customers and retention of distributors.
That's so powerful and so important what you just said. I want to double click on where the brands are today from a corporate perspective and kind of ownership. I think it's important for all of us to understand that we don't own our brands anymore. There's that kind of famous saying that your brand isn't who you say you are, it's who they say you are. It's really shared and experienced and consumed by the consumer, by the distributor, really not by the company anymore. And so we can do our best to try to create some anchors and to continue to kind of tap it in the right direction. But we need to think much more in terms of what's fixed and what's flexible. And I think the majority of things now are flexible, and we need to do, from the corporate side, we need to do all we can to empower you as the distributor to make it your own, to make it authentic, to take these assets and turn it into something that is effective. Because if we're keeping such tight control and it's not going to be a super effective piece of content, why even create it? Why go to the expense? Why go to the time? But I would much rather in today's world just arm you with whatever you need and say, hey, here's kind of some anchors. This is who we are. This is how we're positioned. This is how we're different. Here's photographs, here's videos, here's whatever. And so I've definitely evolved on that for sure. And I love that you talked about personal development. I want to touch for a second on kind of where you see responsibilities lie between what corporate should do and what the field should do.
I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for direct sales network marketing. I wouldn't have the confidence I have. I wouldn't have the life I have. And most of what I attribute the success that we've had to is the work I've done on Nick Martinez. It used to take me 3 hours to pick up the phone just to make a phone call because I was so nervous about what this person was going to think or say. So I'd do the dishes and then I'd dial the number and I hit end and then I'd go mow the yard and then I'd dial the number and like, crap, my wife's coming home. I'd go vacuum the house because she was on her way home. And then she'd get home and I hadn't made the phone call yet. So that was me circa 2009. Today, I don't have those insecurities. I still have plenty, but I've worked through them because of the training that I've been provided and the mentors that I've had. So I personally believe that as a company, if you want your field to thrive, the more that you can pour into them and provide them with resources and also accountability and connection, continuous connection, then the more that you're going to see a shift. If you want thousands of people in your community to have that same experience and to truly build leaders, instead of seeking outside to go find leaders or go find influencers, guess what? They're already there. They're already with you. You just have to develop long enough, or you have to spend enough time and resources with them in order for them to kind of move through that process. So from that standpoint, I believe corporate has a very big role in that. Now you're going to have leaders that learn it and then teach it in between those events, in between those opportunities. And you want to empower and inspire them to do so, because that it becomes more ingrained in them as they start to teach. But if you don't have a central rhythm or a central personal development kind of path or program to help develop people, then you're missing a big opportunity there. As far as development of social strategy.
Yeah, kind of the how-tos to build, socially and in person.
That's an interesting one because it's very personality driven. There's so many different avenues and options. And here's what's interesting is if somebody takes 10 minutes and Googles how to do a TikTok, how to post an Instagram story, how to grow my Facebook, you can find 50 trainings in 10 minutes that are all free. Right. So is it the corporate's job to go recreate all those trainings? I don't necessarily think so. However, I think it's corporate's job to foster an environment to empower promoters, leaders to go and develop those skills. So Brian Underwood's always been really, really cool about embracing anything that people want to do that's like embracing entrepreneurship and embracing creativity. Instead of there's this way that's going on and him saying, oh, this is the only way, you have to do it this way. He's been like, hey, that's a great way of doing it. That's one method of attraction. And the one thing that really has come forward for me over the last number of months in this industry, we always talk about the system. You got to follow the system. You got to plug people into the system. Everybody's got to do the same thing. If it's not duplicatable, then don't do it. So, but here's what's interesting. As a field leader, I listened to stories of everybody that was on stage, everybody that had created a lot of success. And they always talked about something. They're like, don't do that, but that's how I got started. Don't do that, but that's how I used to hang signs. Don't do that, but I created a lot of attraction because I had energy around it. So what's interesting is the method of attraction to me doesn't matter. I don't care if you find them on Facebook. I don't care if you go and put a sign on your body and stand on the corner of the street. I don't care if you do TikTok. I don't care if you do business to business networking. I don't care if you do in-home parties. What I care about is that you're creating attraction. And then what matters after that is the process. Like that's the system to me. So as corporate, if you can create the process, what happens after that? Like what's the video that they watch? What's the process for validation? How did they get started? Like have that nailed down and then empower and inspire and reward creativity on the front end of attraction. Have fun contests around, TikToks that were made or Facebook Lives that hit XYZ metrics or pictures that are posted when people are sharing products in their houses and post on or tag like hashtag your company line. Next thing you know, now people are creating different methods of attraction, whether it's social media or not, and they're using what they're good at. And then you're going to have teams that really push and promote Reels. You're going to have teams that are like all Facebook Live, and that's what they're training, and that's what they're building their pockets in. But I believe as a corporate, the more that we can just welcome them with open arms, excited about the fact that they're being marketers, is super valuable.
I love the concept of kind of leveraging and enhancing the creativity at an individual level, at a team level, at a field level. Just let people be them, provide them with a great asset. But I love that idea around just really embracing creativity. I think we can all, from the corporate side, learn a lot from that. You also mentioned influencers, and I know you have some really strong opinions on this. I think every company right now is kind of wrestling with, do we develop an influencer program just to create increased awareness or to position the brand? But again, you've got some pretty strong feelings about that, of where the focus should be. Can you share your thoughts on influencers and versus kind of going out versus building?
Yeah, I've got a handful of thoughts on that. Over the last 2.5 years, we had a ton of amazing influencers come into our community because of the TikTok famous craze. And man, they could put up some serious numbers. It's impressive, 400 new customers, 300 new customers just by doing a couple posts. What's interesting though is seeking them. We had some teams within our group who really, that's what they did. They recruited specifically influencers, and they had some great volume pops as a result. But to this day, only the ones that got completely bought into our community, to the vision of the company, to our mission, and to who we are, what we're doing, where we're going, those are the only ones that are still with us. The rest of them posted, made a little bit of money, got distracted, felt like they had greater opportunity, even though they just didn't see it. So there is a lot of just baggage, and there's a lot of not necessarily drama, but just challenges back and forth with them. Now, to that accord, what if you had the ability to build your own influencers, right? What if you had the ability to basically say to your field, hey, there's this opportunity to create influence on social media. We're embracing the fact that you can do it. And I'm telling you, if you're watching this and you're a CEO, you have people in your company right now, promoters, who have crushed it over the last couple of years, who are now influencers. And if you're not recognizing their story or saying, wow, this person is killing it, and then sharing that and inspiring others to go and do the same thing, then you're missing a fantastic opportunity. So I was talking to Brian Underwood the other day, and he's like, Nick, we don't go recruit influencers. Our goal is just to build them. Our goal is to foster an environment where they can take the time in order to do so. And I've a lady on our group right now. Her name's Amy Dove, and she started a little page called the Keto Queen. Started it 4 years ago, and she just wanted to teach people how to eat keto, how to eat low carb. Did it consistently. Didn't take off. In fact, during COVID, I thought she was going to be done because her other business had some challenges, and she just wasn't as focused. Well, next thing I know, a year ago, she put in 50 customers. And then in September, she put in 100 customers. And then it was 150 customers. And then it was 200 customers. What was interesting is she had only ever had the page, or only ever had her brand, because she wanted to create influence to promote ketones. She wasn't having that influence so that she could promote this. She wasn't opening up her jacket and had 8 different offers, right?
Sure.
And most influencers, when they come to your company, they may have 2 million followers, but guess what? They're also selling this. They're also selling this. They're also selling this. And now they just have something else to offer. People that you build generally are loyal, generally are specifically building for the purpose of, for the outcome of moving a product that they currently promote with you. So those people to me are gold. This lady, Amy Dove, is now she's enrolling as many or more people than I am. And her page is a fraction of the size. How is that? It's because she's created this really strong glue and this really strong community within her following. So the challenge is it doesn't happen overnight. An influencer, you sign them up tomorrow, they put in tons of customers over the next few months. But the challenge with that, I think a mentor of mine, Jeff Olson, Slide Edge, always says,
another amazing icon.
You have to slow down to go fast. I remember I'm always saying that. You have to slow down to go fast. Well, in the realm of creating influencers, you'd have to slow down to go fast. I was 18 months from no customers to one customer. And then the next 12 months it took off, and now it's been thousands. Well, most people wouldn't take the time to do that. But now looking back, it's like, holy smokes, there's $300,000 worth of product that was sold last month as a result of me being slow for 18 months. So
figuring it out, learning and developing, that is incredible insight. You talked about the importance and the power of focus in the products that you sell. In the example of Amy, this was one of the questions I was actually interested to ask you, and you may have just answered it for me. So you can tell me, hey, just move on. But one of the dynamics we are seeing a little bit more at the corporate level are field leaders potentially promoting products from multiple companies that don't overlap, that don't necessarily compete, but there still, is a cost to that in attention and time on the back end for them and for the company. So can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on this, or did you just answer it with just drill deep and focus on the one thing that you're selling right now or promoting?
Yeah, I have a personal opinion on that from my own business standpoint, and then also have maybe a macro from a company standpoint.
Yeah, please share. That'd be great.
Like personally, our success has come because we've turned down every deal that's come that says, hey, you want to promote this? Hey, do you want to promote this? And I've held true personally to the brand of the Keto Dad. We're going to provide value, and we offer them this when they ask, like, this is what we're offering. And I haven't diluted that because I see the value of this as this is my bread and butter. Okay. So personally, I teach and I train people not to go after the shiny object because it's not worth it. However, from a compliance standpoint or from a policies and procedure standpoint, I do believe that we're in a different space and time than we were 5 years ago. We have this spot now where we have people that have built an influence, and now they're like, well, I want to share this, or I want to share this. So the question is, what's the appropriate policy to put in place? And I honestly can't speak to anybody's specific company or specific situation. However, I can share with you what we just spent literally 6 months between the field, between Brian Underwood, between some Blake Mallon, going back and forth on, all right, how can we make a policy that will not stifle creativity and entrepreneurship, but also at the same time protect the company and protect the integrity of the community of the organizations that are being built. And what we came up with, maybe it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty forward looking, and it allows for a little bit of flexibility and creativity. And it's this. Basically, people are allowed to have links or share other products that are not competing, like you mentioned, not in the network marketing space, and they're just allowed to do it. Now, there is the caveat, because it becomes, well, if Prüvit puts you on stage and now all of a sudden you're exposed to the entire community, now they're following you, now you're selling them other stuff. That's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets interesting.
Sure.
So there becomes a element of compensation, and there's all sorts of different elements and different plans. And it's, what is that element going to be? Where if you want access to it at a higher level, as a leadership level, you basically have to sign something that says you'll just promote our products. And then on a case-by-case basis, there might be something where if I promote this keto product or this keto apparatus, it might actually help to tap into other people's influence and grow mine, meaning tap into that company's network. And now they are following me because they see me there. So like there's creativity and fun around that we don't want to just smash. So allowing people up until that kind of rank level to have those links. And then at the point where they're going to be platformed, so to speak, or have access to extra compensation, at that point, it just becomes an approval process where a independent group of 3 to 5 people that are corporate and the field get to decide basically, okay, is that something that's going to detract from our community, or is it something that's okay? Now, is that policy perfect? I don't know. I'll tell you in a year. Is it better than just saying you can't do anything? If you have anything that's not related to our company, then you're going to be removed from you're going to lose your promoter membership. I think it's definitely better, and it's definitely moving forward. We're going to look back in 6 months and in a year and say, okay, we need to tweak this. but it really is designed to take that person that maybe already had a little influence, who we still want to join us. We're not afraid of them, but also allow them to still be who they are, right? And offer their hats and offer their sweatshirts, because before, like, all of a sudden they couldn't do that anymore. Now this opens up and says, hey, you can do that still, but then puts some guidelines on it.
It's interesting. Kind of what I heard a little bit is you still have to allow some freedom in there for the independent distributors to be authentic, to be who they are, to follow their passions. But what you've found what you've found specifically is that focus has been the most effective for you in growing a really successful business. So again, it's kind of a little bit of that fixed and flexible, the needs there. But thank you for sharing those insights.
Yeah,
I think your story, as I mentioned, is so amazing, from a grit, from a success, from a hard work standpoint. There's so many valuable lessons to pull out of that. And I know that you talk a lot about the journey, and you've kind of referenced that as we've been chatting today. Historically, one of the criticisms of direct selling has been that, success was potentially sold as quick and easy and fast, and hey, just sign up and this is what you could be doing or earning in the next few to several months. I'm curious how you talk about it, with going through the experience of this 10-year overnight success. As new people come into your organization, how do you talk to them about the journey? How do you position success and the potential that people can achieve in direct selling?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting conundrum, right? Because you do have people that enroll and they go through the ranks very, very quickly. You also have people that enroll like myself and who don't quite make it. From an early standpoint, when I enrolled my first customer, the next month, it was back in 2009. It was March 31st. I signed up and enrolled my dad April 30th. I went to an event the next week or 2 weeks later in May. And I remember seeing this guy there. He was sitting in front of me. He was a mortgage broker and he'd just gotten started. And in the last 2 months, he'd made something like $24,000. And I was just like, oh my gosh, is that even possible? I was amazed. I was excited. And I didn't latch on to the speed at which he did. I latched onto the fact that it was possible. So the fact that it's possible, I believe, gives us lots of opportunity, but we also have to very quickly at the same time show the process and the journey. And the ability to articulate that, I think, is the key to, instead of creating a bad name for a company or a bad name for the industry, creating a realistic expectation with the vision for what's possible and where you can go. We drastically overestimate what we accomplish in 1 year. We underestimate what we can accomplish in 5. And I've seen that to be true all the time. A year from now, I'm going to be here, but I overestimate it. 5 years, though, I definitely underestimate what's possible. So when sharing with a new promoter, when working with them, I want them to know that they could enroll one person and that person could go through the roof. You're one promoter away. But I also want them to know that the process in order to find that one person is one of patience, is one of time, and is one of focusing on how can I become better each and every day. So it's letting them know what is possible, because it is. And at the same time, it's teaching them to enjoy the journey, embrace the process, and to keep going for it. And I remember somebody once saying to me, Nick, if you could make $10,000 a month in this business, would it be worth it to you? I'm like, that'd be amazing. So what if it took you 5 years? Would it be worth it? I'm like, for sure. If it's part-time, spare time business and I'm able to create that in 5 years, it'd be worth it. What if it took you 10 years? I'm like, yeah, that would be worth it. And guess what? It took me, 7.5, 8 years to get to that level of income. And then it scaled crazily from there. Now, I decided back then that it was worth it. So a lot of times it's just helping the people that I'm talking to understand, hey, if it takes you this long, will it be worth it? I was running on the treadmill at Orange Theory Fitness this morning, and I had this thought, because we all start at the business in a different spot. And one of the things that Brent Underwood has said to me over and over and over again, which has really helped, and this is something that you can share with any of your field leaders, is the definition of misery is comparison. The definition of misery is comparison. And I saw some new people that joined the gym today. One of them was fairly fit. running on the treadmill pretty quick. One of them wasn't super fit, was challenged to run on the treadmill. Now, if the person that's not fit is judging their journey at Orange Theory Fitness by the person that just joined with them, brand new, but has already achieved that level of fitness, but is just kind of taking it to the next level, well, guess what? That person's going to quit, right? But if the person that's already fit is saying, well, I have to go slow like this person, they're not going to start either. So how do you inspire both of them? Well, you get them to stop focusing on everybody else, to stay in their own lane and focus on what's possible for them and the process and the journey, and then just becoming a little bit better each and every day. And as I was running there, I'm like, this is just like our business. Like, if we can all just focus on where we're at and what we can do to move forward, the definition of misery is comparison.
I love that. That's really powerful. You have been super gracious with your time, but I want to get to a last question here. So the people that are, or most of the people that are going to be listening to this are at corporate, at the executive, at the director level. What advice would you give us on how we can better support the field in today's direct selling environment?
I think right now, transparency, communication, and leading from the front is key. Like, if you as a corporate leader, are you an authentic version of you, or are you just somebody talking? Are you just a face that's talking and reading a script that's talking about a promotion or a product? Like, does the field know who you are? Are they part of your journey also? Are you sharing that on social media? Are you building your own brand? And it's not for you to go sell products, but it's for the community that you're creating that's following your vision to buy into and to be excited about. So the more that we as people sharing the products see and kind of understand and get to know you, the more that we feel that we're part of this community together, we're part of this mission and this vision together, and we're going there. So how is that done? I mean, it's done by you being available. It's done by direct communication. It's done by a interview style, maybe state of play call that we've been doing at Prüvit recently, where people, especially your newest promoter, gets to hear your heart, gets to hear what gets you excited and gets you out of bed every morning, with your community, with your products, with your mission. And the more that I'm able to see that, experience that, feel that, the more I'm excited to lock arms with you and to keep moving forward. So bringing everything we just talked about into your own realm, I believe it's 100% applicable. It's not just a field or a corporate conversation. It's, hey, you're a human. Do you have kids? What's going on with them? How's it going? Like, if the people know that, then guess what? Your promoters are like my Facebook followers, right? They start to know you. They start to like you. They start to trust you. When you say, hey, we're going to do this, guess what? They line up behind you and say, hey, I want to participate. Let's go. Because they have that relationship. And the neat thing with social media, the neat thing with the platforms that you all have, whatever communication platform you use in your company, is that you have the ability to create that just by being authentic, just by sharing your story, your journey. And now, like, people are bought into you as much as they're bought into the company, as much as they're bought into your products.
That's the perfect idea and thought to end on. Nick, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations to you and your wife on all your success. We know that it's been a team effort, and we look forward to having her on with you next time. Thank you for all you do to build not only the company that you're at, but create a really great reputation for the industry as a whole, and all you do to develop people. Thanks for your time today.
Absolutely, Wayne. Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in. And don't forget to register for DSU to learn more from Nick and 30 plus of today's executive leaders to gain insights and access to the topics you care most about. DSU takes place in just 5 weeks on October 6th and 7th in Irving, Texas. Register today for free at dsu2022.com, and we look forward to seeing you soon. We also invite you to subscribe to the podcast so that you are the first to know when new episodes are available. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach Podcast.